Lead. How this story ends is up to us. A true story written by Shannon Burkett, directed by Alan Taylor, starring Merritt Wever, Alessandro Nivola, Cynthia Nixon, and me, Cooper Burkett.
Every day, every hour, he was getting worse, regressing further and further inside his brain. The poison that was coursing through his veins was wreaking havoc on his nervous system. The damage was being done. I knew I was running out of time. I took him to see a lead specialist at Montefiore.
12? He went from 19 to 12 in 3 weeks?
Yeah, is that good?
I should be hiring you. That is very impressive.
I tried.
How'd you do it?
I did a daily regime of iron, magnesium, and calcium.
To flush out the lead. You did an excellent job.
He had to take the iron anyway. He's anemic. The pediatrician said it's probably from the lead.
Most likely.
Because the body mistakes lead for iron.
And calcium. Lead can stay in the long bones for decades and be released during pregnancy, lactation, which you don't need to worry about with him, and aging.
So his levels could go back up?
Yeah, could.
So he'll never be fully free from the lead?
Maybe, someday. Now, as the body rids itself of the lead, it is going to bell curve. You have this great drop, and then it starts to flatten out with not much change, and it can take a long time to finally reach...
below 3. It took 3 years. He went from 12 to 9 to 7, back up to 8, and then stayed at 7 for what felt like forever. 6, and then he stayed at 5. Forever. What about the side effects?
Has he had any?
He stopped speaking.
Oh.
Stopped responding to his name.
Oh.
Is that going to be permanent?
Get some speech therapy, go through the city, get some services for him. Listen, you've done a great job. Keep doing what you're doing.
I applied for services through the city. The wait time was and is long, and the first time they tested him, he didn't qualify because his damage didn't fit their algorithm. I had evacuated the kids to my parents' house for the summer because I couldn't trust the apartment, and I watched helplessly as Cooper's development was put in reverse. He stopped responding to any verbal prompts to the point that my father, who is a physician, thought he might have hearing loss from the lead. I was like the teacher in Helen Keller, clapping my hands behind his head to see if he'd flinch. Nothing. I took him to an audiologist, and his hearing was perfect, which meant that he was retreating further and further into his mind. I would look into his eyes and see him trapped in there, unable to communicate with me. The terror in his eyes and the rage was about to come. And he would spit up still, just bend over and just a couple of tablespoons of vomit on the floor. I walked around with a rag to clean up after him. There were signs, things that were off, not making sense. And Dr. Nikki was trying to make sense of the senseless.
He's still anemic. Shannon, you're sure you're giving him the iron?
Every day.
I know you are. I just had to ask.
I knew I needed help, a community, people who were going through similar experiences, but there was nothing. I reached out to a well-known environmental organization.
Why are you calling us?
Because lead is part of the environment. Clean water, clean soil, that's what you do, right?
Yeah, but lead's not really a thing anymore.
My son got really sick.
I can't help you.
What about a support group, babe?
There are no support groups for lead. There are no ribbons or bumper stickers, no celebrity spokesperson, no telethon, no walks, no community.
Yeah, but what would the bumper sticker be? Skull and crossbones? Who wants that on their car next to the baby on board?
You know, what celebrity would want to be the face of a neurotoxin?
Are kids even getting lead these days?
Dr. Vicky has only treated a handful of lead cases.
I guess we're alone. Just very, very unlucky.
Alone in our unluckiness. At night, in my parents' house alone in their spare bedroom, after finally getting the kids to bed, I would lie on my stomach and brace my forehead against the mattress, draw my forearms under my chest, constructing a tortoise shell for myself, pushing back against the crushing pressure, clamping down. My shell was somewhere I could hide, somewhere I could be protected, just for a few minutes. I needed something, anything, to hold on to. The ground continuously slipped beneath my feet and I was free falling. I needed to stop the spiral. It started with a chemistry class.
You want to go back to school?
Andy, I could work nights as a nurse and you could work days, and that way a parent will always be with him.
But you love acting. Shannon was and is one of my favorite actresses. That's how we met. I fell in love with her acting first. I came to New York to get into film and got hooked up with an internship at Good Machine. Any 90s film fans out there? Hopefully there's at least one. To pay my rent, I worked the graveyard shift as an IT guy for high-powered senior executives at a high-powered firm. I'd get calls like, "Where is the any key? I can't find the any key." And I would say, "You just need to press any key." I was always into computers.
Into computers? He built his own computer. His 10th birthday cake was a computer. He got one question wrong on his math SATs. He's really smart. I love that about him. God, nerds are so sexy.
I'm glad that you feel that way. Can I finish our love story?
Please do.
So, one day, Good Machine gets a panic call from Hal Hartley's editing facility. That's another 90s reference for you. The industry was switching from cutting on actual film, like film strips, over to computers. The staff could not figure out what was going on with one of the computers and needed help. Good Machine sent me. When I get there, literally all I had to do was plug something in and they were like, "You're a genius. Come intern for us." That lasted 2 weeks. Sense and Sensibility was starting post and they knew they needed me full-time, and so they hired me. I worked alongside other sound editors, paid my dues until I got the chance to supervise my very first feature film.
Produced by Good Machine.
The film was called Love God.
It's not a porno, I swear.
And there was this woman in it. I was just drawn into her performance. She was fearless. She jumped into that character with everything she had. Even though she played a mute, I almost called her in for ADR.
Recording actors' voices for the movie.
Just to meet her. Love God was accepted into Sundance, and Good Machine invited me to go out to Park City, probably to ensure that the movie sounded good in the theater. On the day of the flight, outside the gate, I was sitting on the floor of LaGuardia Airport, and this woman, this blonde, walks by, and I was like, how do I know her? And then I was like, that's the girl from The Love God. And I thought, I'm going to marry her. During that first leg, I gathered up all the courage I had, and during the layover, I walked up to her and I asked, "Are you Shannon Burkett?"
Yes.
I know, she was like, who's this creepy guy? So I quickly tried to clarify how I knew her. I've been staring at you on screen for the last 8 weeks. I was making it worse.
I was thinking, oh, my first stalker.
I had to try and salvage this. My name is Andy Chris. I'm the sound editor on Love God.
Oh.
And we chatted nonstop until we had to sit in separate rows on the plane. We had a blast at Sundance together, and she was just so nice. My hands were cold at one point, and she gave me her gloves. I didn't tell her, as someone who grew up in Michigan, I can handle the cold. But I thought, if I go home with her gloves by accident, then I have a reason to call her when we get back to New York. And call her I did. And we went on what I thought was our first date, and that is when I found out she had a boyfriend. I patiently waited until they broke up, but it wasn't until she tried to fix me up with her friend that I finally had to tell her how I felt about her.
And everything changed in that moment. I just fell for him.
We were together for almost 2.5 years before we got pregnant with Alice. We were so young. The young parents trying to figure it out, trying to make it work. And while I know how much Shannon loves being a mom to our kids, I will always feel like I ruined her career. A man can have a baby and no one will question his commitment to his work, but a woman, the entertainment business is stuck in the 50s. But Shannon worked. Her first job was 6 weeks after she gave birth. But now, with Cooper being so sick, there would be no forgiveness for a mom with a sick child. These days, when I'm at work and I stare at that screen and I see another actress up there and not Shannon, I always wonder what she would have done with that role if I hadn't kept those gloves, if I was honest and gave them back. Maybe I would still get to see her up there, and she'd still be doing what she loves.
What do you mean he spits up?
He spits up a little bit when he leans over or jumps around, or should he not still be doing this?
No. His system should have matured by now. He should be able to keep his stomach contents in his stomach.
Lead was produced by Shannon Burkett, co-produced by Jenny Maguire, featuring Keith Nobbs and Frank Wood, casting by Elaine Aldafer and Lisa Donadio. Music by Peter Sollett, sound design by Andy Chris, recording engineer Christopher Chavanis. For corresponding visuals and more information on how to protect children from lead exposure, please go to endleadpoisoning.org.